AI operating systems, or AIOS for short, is the single most powerful thing you can build with AI right now. This is because these are one of the hottest pieces of tech in the entire AI space, and agencies are charging companies $5,000 to $10,000 just to set this up for a single employee. And the demand for it is only rising. And it's not just agencies. Billion-dollar companies like Coinbase and Block are restructuring their entire companies publicly based around this one idea. And so by the way it's looking is that every single company is going to be using this technology, and it'll be at the core of how modern businesses are built. And the best part of it all is that you don't have to be technical to build an AIOS. That's because Claude Code is so good now that it can handle all the technical work. You just have to know what to tell it to do and what to build. And so that's what this exact course is, as I will give you the step-by-step playbook and you can just follow along with me. This is the same exact system I've used to 10x my own productivity, build a $10,000 a month AI agency while still in college, and turn Claude Code into the most valuable business tool I've ever used. You just have to make me one promise, and that's that you will actually take action and follow along with this full course. Because I promise you, if you do that, you'll have a full working AIOS by the end of this video. And once you complete this course, you've got two options. You can either use it to 10x your own business, like the way I use mine, or you can take everything you learned and sell it as one of the hottest offers in the AI market right now. And so by the time we're done, you'll actually know how to do both. And so let's hop into it. And so this is how I would sort of graph out an AI operating system. And I would describe it as a custom intelligence layer sort of built around your business. So this isn't like an AI agency where it is a business model in and of itself, but rather something you actually build and deliver. Similar to, you could think of AI voice agents, which are something I used to build. And so at the core of it will be your business or a client's business or whatever else. So this could be an e-commerce company in there. This could be a plumbing company. Any sort of company could occupy this sort of business section here. And then you build the operating system around that. And so you first start with the context, and this is what I call the craft framework. And that starts with the context, which is simply who you are. I'll go a lot more in depth into what each of these layers represent. And then beyond that, on top of the context, you build this reach layer, which is what the AI can see or go out and reach and grab within your business. Third would be the actions. And so this is what the AI can actually do, the actions it can take. Fourth, the F is flow, which is how things actually run. Are they scheduled? Are you manually triggering and operating the operating system from within Claude Code? Are you operating it from your phone, which is something I'll show you later in this course how to set up through Telegram. And then lastly is tuning, which is how it grows, sort of the extra things you can add on top of the core you've already built of this operating system to make it better, more customized to your specific business and use cases. And where I got the idea from this is I was inspired from a lot of different sources, both on YouTube and in traditional media. Is two companies very recently cut a lot of their workforce and released memos on why. And it essentially was restructuring of the organization in this way, where they were putting their business in the middle and then building AI on top and around it. And those two companies were Coinbase and their CEO, Brian Armstrong, who announced he was cutting his headcount or firing about 14% of his staff, as well as Block and Jack Dorsey, who was the original founder of Twitter. And these are both publicly traded companies. And so you can see this isn't just like an idea on YouTube that you might have seen elsewhere from other creators. This is something that is broadly applicable to pretty much every business. These are two very smart people sort of at the cutting edge of tech that are taking this step as well. So if we look at the company's stock prices, so Coinbase announced this May 5th. If we look in the past month, we can see May 5th they announced this. Their stock actually dropped a bit, but actually has climbed up in the past days. It's up about 4%. You can see it's climbing there. And then Block announced this February 26th. And so if we go in the last 12 months, You can see February 26th they announced this. They're at $54. You see a big spike after the announcement, and it's slowly started to climb up a bit more. And since then has jumped a good amount, and you can see has jumped almost over 14% in the past month. And so I know stock prices don't have everything to do with these two announcements. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. However, it's generally a good sign when the market forces agree with these decisions, and we're able to actually implement these and ride that wave of where we sort of know almost all small and medium-sized businesses will go. So they'll follow some of these bigger businesses. And so continuing on with the craft framework, now that I've given sort of that framing, is what actually is it? So these are the 5 layers for your AI operating system, and each of them are independently valuable, and they are built in sequence, so they sort of build on top of each other. So very first is the context. So this is what the AI knows. So this will be like your Claude.md file, your business context, your specific voice, how you like to write, who you are actually using the AIOS, as well as your business strategy and goals. And I would generally describe this as static data. This is data that generally won't change a whole lot or isn't changing every day. And that differs with R, which is reach, which is what the AI can see, which I like to think of as more malleable or changing data sources, such as APIs. For example, mine is connected to my YouTube to see how many views, subscribers, etc. I'm getting. That's something that changes every day. That's not going to exist in context. It's something I have to go out and reach, and the AIOS has to go and grab. Another one is emails. You get new emails every day. Call transcripts if you have new calls every day. And so these two sections, both context and reach, really are all about getting more context, getting more data into the AIOS so that it can better operate and is working with a full picture of what's going on in your business, and specifically you inside of that business if you are an employee, or if you're a CEO thinking of implementing this not for just yourself but for your employees as well. And so third, we then have actions, which obviously builds on these. So now that you have all this information, the AI knows, what are your business goals, the context of your business, what you're trying to achieve. This decides what actions you can do. So these will be different skills. For example, I have a coffee debrief I get every morning on my phone. I don't have my phone by me, but basically my Telegram gets a message at 7 a.m. every morning from my AIOS after scraping all of my emails, all of my YouTube data. It tells me how I am aligned with my goals, what sort of things I have to focus on today or do. If there's overdue emails I have to sort of tend to, or admin tasks. And then, so that's an action my AI is actually able to take based on this data. My AI OS is also able to generate thumbnails for me. It's able to generate, scripts, and actually this entire Excalidraw that you're looking at here that I'm presenting right now was made through my AI OS. So that's another example of an action. Next is flow, which is how you actually interact with your AI OS. And so a lot of mine is through Claude Code. And a lot of this tutorial will be through Claude Code, and you'll see that later, exactly how you interact with that. And that's probably the most native way that all of us are most familiar with. The only problem is you really have to be at a desk, sort of like alone, to use Claude Code. It's not something you can easily use from your phone. However, I will show you how to set up your AIOS on your phone using Telegram so that you can start new chats. You can ask it questions. You can even trigger certain automations or get things done so that you can really run your business on the go from your mobile phone. There's also things in here such as scheduling new tasks with your AIOS or scheduling actions that are important as well. And then lastly, tuning. This is something I'm still trying to figure out how to perfectly do it, but basically how to actually grow your AIOS. Once you have some of these things in place, how do you continue to make it better, make sure you're not missing out on things? Obviously your business changes, you change, what AI changes, so you need to keep it up to date. And so this tuning is really about doing that and making it more useful and continuing to be useful. And so a lot of this you'll see is auditing your AIOS, seeing, is there something we haven't used in a while? Maybe you can just delete that, get rid of fluff, or, something has consistently ran into errors, or maybe there's new tasks you can automate. And making sure the actual system is able to, improve upon itself. Now, inside of each of these layers, we have two different things that are able to actually make them come alive. The first is nodes, and the second is skills. So starting with skills, I would describe these as installable capability packages. And so these can look very different depending on what you're trying to achieve, but they're basically folders of scripts, configuration, and context that connect a new capability to your system. So you install them once, and you're able to plug in a whole new layer of functionality. And so, you could think of them as sort of like plugins. I like to call them nodes because you can really like plug and play with them. You can use certain nodes, you can't. And so the best way to sort of visualize this, I'll actually give you a sneak peek at the nodes we're going to be implementing in this course. So if you join my free community down below, again, completely free, you can then come to the classroom, or actually come to YouTube resources under community. And if you're watching this video right after it came out, it should be the top video here. If not, you can search up the title of this video, and in there you will find this GitHub repo. And in here, we'll cover how to actually use this entire GitHub repo later. I just want to show you exactly how to find it right now. And in here, there's a description of each of the nodes that we will be going over in this course. So the first one we're actually going to install is the Vault node, which has all of your workspace structure and foundation. It will basically guide you through the setup of your workspace for your AIOS and the foundation of everything you need to continue on with the rest of this course. Second will be the context node, which will then walk you through learning your business inside and out and setting up the context layer. And then there are a couple other ones here that you can see, but essentially these are ways for me to standardize the implementation of an AIOS, as well as you to standardize it if you decide to sell this to your friends that are business owners, or if you do some cold outreach and find other business owners that want to install this in their own company. You're not just like talking to Claude Code all day and hacking together an AIOS. That the nodes allow there to be some sort of structure here. And then second are skills, which are basically slash commands that trigger a workflow. These are the exact same as Claude skills. They're just, I give you a package of specific skills to using and building an AIOS. And so some of the common ones here you'll see is slash start that I recommend you use at the start of every new session you open up in Claude Code. It will help you sort of get it ready. You'll understand and read through all the context inside of your AIOS. There's slash pulse, which will, based on your context and everything going on in your AIOS and your company, give you a live snapshot of your business numbers and how those compare with what you're trying to actually achieve, and etc. And so those are some examples of nodes and skills. And here we can see how those fit in the actual craft framework, because some nodes and skills sort of work at each layer. And so we have this sort of infrastructure foundation where we implement the Vault node that will set up your actual AIOS, make sure everything's in line. This is the boring stuff like the folder structure, making sure your GitHub is connected so that we can actually revise the code and have a version history of the code and update it somewhere so that even if it gets deleted on your computer, it exists out in the cloud, and all of that fun stuff. And I won't get too in-depth in this because when we actually build it together, you'll see this live, and so there's not a whole lot of a reason for me to explain this really in depth now. But you can see, that same goes for the context node, or the context layer, the reach layer, the action layer, the flow layer, and the tuning layer. And so let's move on to, sort of drawing back to Block and Coinbase. Why is the AIOS actually important? And I think this is one of the most important graphs that sort of shows why we need this, because everybody knows like implementing AI is super powerful. However, we've seen like a bunch of business owners are implementing AI but getting no real result from this. So what are we actually trying to achieve? I want to give credit to Liam Otley for this idea. So Liam Otley made a YouTube video sort of explaining this, and I liked it so much I wanted to steal it for my own course because I think it's really helpful for you guys. And this is called the operator trap. I'm pretty sure this is what he calls it. And so it's basically where your bandwidth goes and where it should go. So if you run a business, and if you want to run a business, you will find there's a major problem that you spend a lot of your time in the business. So this is on things like actually executing, administrative tasks, meetings, reporting, etc. And I like to think of these as like 1x activities. These are activities that just maintain the status quo. It keeps your business as is. You're sort of treading water, just staying afloat, which is fine, and you need to do them, or else they start to become 0.5x activities if you start not doing them. And your business starts to falter, but all of us want to actually grow our business. And whether you're like comfortable financially or not, you want to grow it to make sure you don't start falling behind. And the way you do that is you work on the business. And so these are like launching new initiatives, say, a new marketing project, a new product line, whatever that might look for your business. The problem is, as an operator, which is usually the founder or CEO, they spend a significant amount of their time in the business when they'd rather spend it on the business. And honestly, spending it on the business is way more fun anyways. And so one solution used to be like hiring a CEO, COO, a chief operations officer. The problem with this is that's really expensive, and you need to find the right person, and that takes a lot of time. The other solution is having an AIOS, and that was the exact thesis behind Brian Armstrong and Coinbase, as well as Jack Dorsey and Block, is that they don't need all these employees who have been working in the business. That was part of that 80%. And they will now have an AIOS basically that can eat up a significant portion of all this task and bandwidth, which allows them to then sort of invert this and spend 80% of their time on the business, such as living their life, as well as new initiatives, new strategies, and actually growing it. And you still have to spend time in the business. That's sort of just the reality of running a business. However, it'll be significantly less. And so not only does this make business owners' lives significantly easier, but it actually makes the business a lot better. And so you might be thinking like, Tommy, all this stuff sounds so great. If it was so great, why didn't people just figure this out earlier? Like, I couldn't have personally been the first person to figure this out. And it's because I'm not. It's because people knew this was sort of like where AI was going, except these three things weren't true. First, the models just weren't smart enough. They were okay at coding, but they just weren't great. They weren't good enough to handle this much context at scale. And so if you were to build this type of system a year or two ago, it'd be incredibly expensive, incredibly slow, and it just really wouldn't have worked the way you wanted it to. Number two is that agency is real. So like the skills, the tool use, terminal access for these coding agents, such as them using Unix, and routines are all first class and actually usable for a normal person, which gets me into this third point, is that coding's democratized now. So you don't have to know Python to start building this or troubleshoot these things. And AI will just do most of the technical work for you. And by most, I mean pretty much all of it, unless you're trying to do something like really complicated. But within the bounds of an AIOS, especially for personal use, AI can do pretty much everything you want. You just have to direct it in plain English. So these three things coming together are why now is actually the time that AIOSs and these sort of applying AI at a much broader scale and giving it like fully open access to your business is viable now. I also want to mention why this is so important. So Naval Ravikant, who's a famous investor, he goes on a bunch of podcasts, says a bunch of smart stuff, basically outlined that there are 4 forms of leverage to help make you rich. And one is labor, where you hire people, you help scale, but it's high cost. But that's one way to get more leverage and achieve more with less. And it's usually, achieving more output for less time. So, every, week, month, your company can achieve more output over less time. The second was capital. So you could deploy more money, and that could get you more output per unit of time. However, the problem with these two is it's expensive. For capital, you literally have to have capital, and for labor, you usually have to pay people. And so these two are expensive, and so it's sort of hard to hit that inflection point to where you can really start to scale those. And then there's another one, media. So this is podcast, YouTube videos, where it tends to look like this, and then it can like shoot up. So if you think about like my YouTube channel, I started 2 years ago. I didn't get many views, but it takes me the same amount of effort to make a video every time, except now I have more subscribers. So I get more output per unit of time now than I did before. The problem is a lot of people just aren't built for media. A lot of, especially business owners, don't want to be on camera all the time. Maybe it just doesn't even fit their business. And so media doesn't fit for a lot of people. And then code is probably the most powerful just because it's the most accessible. Capital might be the most powerful overall because it's super low effort to actually deploy capital. But code is completely free. The problem is that you had to know how to do it before, and it was extremely complicated, something you'd have to go to school for, or you had to leverage labor to then actually use code, the leverage of code. But now, with the democratization of coding, with these coding agents being so good, code is pretty much like infinite free scaling once you build it, and the AI will actually do the technical work for you. And so that's why like this revelation is so amazing, that we can build actual coding infrastructure into businesses, whether it's ours or clients of ours, and benefit from the leverage of code for $20 a month with Claude Code. It is amazing, and it's something that really is the backbone of this concept of the AIOS. So now you know generally what an AIOS is. You know why it's important, why it works inside of companies from a high level. But how do you know it actually is working inside of the company? Like once you start implementing it for yourself or for someone else, how do you know it's working? Now, these are 3 measures I also got from Liam Otley, just because I think he nailed them. I don't think I have to be different in my course just for the sake of being different, and I'll give credit where credit's due. First is away from desk autonomy. This is way more important to business owners than you think, especially ones that work in like quote unquote the real world, like the physical world, such as perhaps someone owning a plumbing company, or even people who run financial services and manage a bunch of people, is how much of your business can you run from your phone? If you go up to most CEOs, you'll see their screen time is like insane. And that's because they're so busy texting and interacting with people. And so I would challenge you, if whether you're a business owner or an agency owner, try spending a day without your laptop once you finish this course and set up your AIOS, and see how your business actually runs after that. Sorry, I have to get this out. Because hopefully your business can actually run, while you sleep, while you're out on the go, while you're on a golf course. It's pretty much every business owner's dream is to get that flexibility, and the AIOS really helps us sort of advance that. And so set a baseline. If you can't run, like I personally can't really run any of my company, especially before the AIOS, from away from my desk. I have to record a lot, I have to be here, I have lighting, I have a camera. But there's a lot of admin stuff I've actually been able to automate, stuff with specific client projects with my phone now that I've set this up, which is really nice. Second is task automation. So we'll show you, there's a couple of different skills and nodes that help you actually assess how many of your tasks you can automate and how many are currently automated. So you can get a direct percentage for this, but we basically want to measure what fraction of your recurring tasks is now handled by AI. And so we want to take inventory of this and track this, weekly, maybe even daily if you're really hammering away at this, and target that 60 to 70% of your personal tasks, not the company's tasks, are automated by AI. And this goes for both employees and founders, and that would be within 30 days. And I want to be clear that 60 to 70% doesn't mean that it's fully end-to-end automated each task. Maybe it means you automate 60 to 70% of all of your tasks, and you sort of augment them. So you still have to do a bit of work, but 60 to 70% less than you had to before. And then lastly is revenue per employee, which is just a basic metric to find out how efficient your business is. And again, you don't want to compare this across different industries. Obviously, each different business model will have a different number of employees. For example, there's like info businesses, people that sell courses that will make 250 grand, 300 grand, and it's just the founder. And so that's like really profitable. And there's some that just require more human capital. And so I would say compare yourself to your competitors, friends you have in this space, or even yourself before you implemented the AIOS to see your revenue per employee. And obviously that's calculated by total revenue divided by total employees. And so, as AI is being implemented more, you should see that headcount per dollar of revenue should end up falling. And that's whether you start making more money or you're actually able to, cut the denominator down, and perhaps you don't need as many team members. And so here, I just want to mention the actual build sequence of setting up your AIOS. We are obviously going to start with infrastructure, which is, again, just setting up that sort of base layer for the company. And then we move into the context, then reach, then actions, then flow, then tuning. So the acronym works because it is in order. And then once you have all these set up, at least at a base level, which you will have at the end of this course, you can then bounce around, obviously, between each of these. You can work on the context a bit of your AIOS if you think there's more to add there. A lot of time will be spent in the actions. The flow is probably something that you just set up once, and then you can sort of like set and forget it until you maybe set up a new action that needs to run on sort of like routine. And then the tuning will be at like a normal sort of rhythm or cadence, maybe weekly or monthly, that you analyze that. Now, touching a bit more on something I talked about earlier is the automation spectrum. And so every task you touch or do, or your business touches or does on a day-to-day basis, lives somewhere on this spectrum. And so your AIOS, the only thing it's trying to accomplish is to move it right. And so like I said, you don't have to automate every task end to end, but your goal is to keep moving it this way. And so you want to keep going farther to the right. So first is ignore, which is basically like manual, is over here, what this side of the arrow is. And what the AI does is, it reads it for you, maybe it surfaces it for you, it knows it exists, so you're sort of like within this realm here, but it dismisses it, you never open it. This is a lot of what people are doing with ChatGPT. They're sort of like talking or brainstorming to it just because they can, and maybe it's like a bit helpful, but you're still in this sort of first area where it's really not taking that much time off your plate. And then next we have the drafting or augmenting, which basically means like it does most of that task for you, and it does it pretty much as effectively as you. Maybe you have to edit it a bit. This is where there's the most wiggle room. Maybe it does the hardest part of the task, and then you have all the easy stuff to do. More than likely, it'll do all the easy stuff for you, so you don't have to worry about that, but you still have to do the hard part. And so this is where your AIOS is still incredibly helpful. So let's say, think like high level. Sorry, this is a bit off script, but let's think high level. What goes into making a YouTube video? So So I first have to get an idea, and then I have to script the video, and then I have to sort of like revise that. And then next, after that, I usually want some sort of lead magnet in all of my videos to draw people to my free community. And so I have to build a lead magnet. And then I actually have to record the video, then edit it, and then make a thumbnail, make a title, and I have to post it. And then I make a LinkedIn post, I make a school post. Might be a couple things I'm missing in there. But basically, let's say this is a task. And so prior to having my AIOS, I unfortunately had to do literally all of this like manually. ChatGPT did some of it for me. So let's say the LinkedIn is crossed off. It would write some of those posts for me. It would write the school post. It actually wouldn't. That's like posting the video. It wouldn't do. Maybe it would help me with the title. I'll give it that. It would help me script it. It wouldn't really help me with ideas. It would help me revise it. And so let's say AI already got me to like here on that scale. Well, once I got my AIOS and it knew the full context of my business, one, like the script got like a lot better. So I'd even move it, like it went from just like taking that task off my plate, making me more efficient, to actually making me more effective at my job. And then after that, I figured out Claude Code can build a lot of these lead magnets. So it made like a lot of this GitHub repo for me because I built my AIOS. I basically just told Claude Code like, hey, like make this a template other people can use. And so lead magnet, gone. Editing, I'll take out like most of editing, probably like 90% of it's now automated with AI because I have it automatically sort of like change my audio to make it way higher quality and some other things it does, such as like specific cuts. My thumbnail is now completely created with AI. Recording, you still have to manually record and set things up, and I have to talk. I don't use like an AI avatar or anything. Ideas are still mostly just me, if I'm being honest. And then posting, like, it makes like, I have to click post, but it makes like the full description, the timestamps for me and all of that. So I went from like here, like pre-AI, to here with like ChatGPT, and then with the AIOS, I came like here, where like most of my YouTube videos are like automated with AI, like a lot of the tasks. And some of these just really can't be. And I know like a bunch of other creators in the space have this exact same workflow, and that's why you see like these AI creators able to pump out videos every day, is because they're able to be so much more efficient. And so hopefully that was helpful, me showing you like an actual example of that in real life. And then obviously at the end, you have fully automated over here, where it completes the task and you don't even have to think about it anymore. This is more rare than you'd think. There's just not a lot of tasks that like don't need some human input, or you wouldn't want some human input in it. But there are some emails I can just all respond to now because I trust my AI to respond the way I write, and then just sort of update me on what was said. And so now that we have covered a lot of the high-level concepts of what an AIOS is, how it functions, let's now get into the longest portion of this course, the build portion, where you will want to join my community and come to this GitHub, because this is where we're going to be this is where the meat of the rest of the video is from. And so now we are getting into the meat and potatoes of this course, the actual build section. And it will all be sort of based on this GitHub repo I created called AIOS. Now, the way you find this is you click the link down below to join Applied AI Academy, completely free. It's not a paid community. And once you click join, we'll accept you as fast as we can. And then you will come to the community tab, come to YouTube resources. The video should be at the top here if you're watching this video right as it comes out. If you're watching at a later date, you will need to search the title of this YouTube video you're watching, and it should pop up. Just copy and paste the title. And then once you find it, click on the post that has the title of this video, and you can find the linked GitHub repo inside of there. And so moving back to the AIOS, the first thing you will need is Claude Code. And so you do need a paid plan to use Claude Code. And so I recommend just getting the Pro plan. That will work for this tutorial. Only get the Max if you really need it. I would just recommend starting with the Pro and upgrading the Max if you sort of start to run out of usage limits. The only difference between the two is the usage limit differences. Now, we need a way to actually interact with Claude Code. Now, you can use Claude Desktop, but that's sort of the light version and it's not as powerful. And so because you guys are engaging in a longer course, I'm going to assume you're not afraid to actually dabble and jump into the weeds. And so we need an IDE. The one I recommend is Google Anti-Gravity. Some other common ones are VS Code as well as Cursor. Those will also work just fine for this tutorial and should be easy enough to follow along with because their actual user interface is very similar to Google Anti-Gravity, but just know in this course I will be using Google Anti-Gravity. Now, when you open Google Anti-Gravity, you should be greeted with a screen like this. What I am going to do is open up a new folder. Just for demo purposes here, I recommend you open up, if you just downloaded Google Anti-Gravity, you'll need to create a new folder anyways. If you already have it, I would recommend making a new folder for this course just to keep everything organized. File structure is a really important part of this. And so, starting clean, make sure you have a good launch pad for creating your AIOS. And so I'm just going to name this AIOS demo YouTube and then select that folder. You will now see Google Anti-Gravity opened up a brand new IDE based on this folder. Now, for actually installing Claude Code, you need to come over here to extensions and you'll search up Claude Code. Mine's right here because I recently searched it up. And then you'll want to click install. Obviously, I already have mine installed, so I can't install it again. But once you do that, this button up here, the Claude logo, will show up and you can click here. Now, once you open that, you'll be greeted with a screen that will look very similar to if you were using the desktop version of Claude Code, except it has access to any files you put in here, and Claude Code comes with a number of other features. And so now that we have this all set up and you're ready to actually talk to Claude inside of Google Anti-Gravity, I'm going to come back to the GitHub repository. Now, I tried to make this as readable as possible. Obviously, Claude wrote a lot of this, but basically describing what it is, how it works, and how to actually get started so that whether you're watching this tutorial or not, you can follow along with everything in GitHub, and there's a ton of context on how it actually works. Because when you import this, Claude will actually get all this context as well. And so first, this first step is to just point Claude at this and tell it to import this entire repo. And so I'm going to paste this in here. I'm going to tell Claude, import this repo into this AIOS demo YouTube folder that you're operating within. And so once that is done, all the files and all the information inside of GitHub, and I'm just going to turn on bypass permissions, so that'll just go in the background. But all of this context and everything, you can see it's loading all the folders. Everything inside this GitHub repo will then be inside of our Claude Code. And so it's now been cloned into here. You can see everything inside of this. And so our next step is to now actually install the very first node. And so it gives us this command here that we can copy and paste, but I want to make sure /install is actually there. So it is, that's nice. I don't want it to type it for me, but it's good to know that command is there. If you don't find a / command once you import everything, you may need to just open up another instance of Claude Code and that will refresh it, and the slash command should be there. That was an issue I ran into previously, but thankfully it was here now. And so the slash install command will install this node. Now, while that is going, I want to sort of explain a bit behind this actual repo. Now, under core node installs, I've included a README for each one so that you know exactly what each node does. So this first Vault node that is currently being installed in the background is what creates our AIOS workspace. So it creates the folder structure, the master context file, and all the foundational pieces that every other node actually attaches to. And so it's sort of like the skeleton, and then we start adding the muscle throughout this course. So without this, the other nodes would really just have nowhere to live. Things would get messy, and as you scale to a lot more context, a lot more files, as your AIOS should be getting stronger and able to do more, without the right infrastructure, without the right skeleton, it starts to really break down, becomes really messy to fix. And so what it does is that when you install this node, Claude will actually build out your workspace structure, and it creates a file called craft.md that it sort of outlines more below, and make sure everything is in place for the nodes that come after it. I actually think I changed craft.md to claude.md, so this might have changed a bit, and I will update this repo as I obviously update the AIOS. I just want to get this out to you guys as soon as I built it. And then we'll see that Claude will ask us a few questions before building everything. And then what I'll need to do myself, as you'll see in a second, is open craft.md and fill in the rest of it. And so how I actually know it's working is if I run /start in Claude Code after creating this node, it'll greet me by name, describe my business, mention my current focus, and that will mean the Vault node is doing its job. So let's go back in here. What's my name and what I call my business or project? My name is Tommy, and my business is AIOS AI, where we build and implement AI into small to medium-sized businesses. I also have a YouTube channel where I show helpful AI tutorials. You'll see I built this to try and be as interactive as possible and to sort of walk you through the creation of this AIOS, as well as if you were to sell this to a business owner, it makes it as user-friendly for them as well. So in one sentence, what I sell, create, and who's it for? I sell AIOS systems as well as voice agents and other AI automations to small to medium-sized businesses located inside of the US. I mainly target business owners who are looking to scale their companies, and they are generally companies between 10 and 50 employees. I also have a YouTube channel, and I get sponsorships through there, and I haven't monetized that fully yet. So that is my response, a bit more than one sentence there. I'm working solo, or do I have a team? I mostly work solo. However, I have certain developers depending on the project I have with a client. And I recently had a team for my YouTube. However, my AIOS replaced them all. And so that was one of the big things I got from AIOS is a lot of my content is now automated in terms of a lot of the editing, thumbnail creation, etc. Then I am on Windows is the last question it asked me. Or no, there's one more. I do have a GitHub account. Okay, so now it's saying is setting up all of this and skipping the GitHub account creation. And then I will say yes, ready to proceed. Okay, now you can see it filled everything out. And then lastly, it just needs me. And let me zoom in on this a bit to see it a bit better. It wants me to paste my GitHub token, and it tells me exactly how to find it. Go to github.com. I go to the top right avatar, and then it guides me on how to do that. Now, I do not recommend pasting any tokens into the actual Claude chat if you can avoid it. Instead, go to your .env file, and you can paste it here manually. It's just as easy as actually pasting it into Claude, except you don't give Claude access to any of your tokens. That's just a little security thing. I used to paste it into Claude and I never ran into an issue, but it's just bad practice. So if you can avoid it, I would. And so I'm gonna go do that right now because I don't want to share my GitHub token. But again, when you're actually setting this up, it walks you through it perfectly. Now I just went and grabbed my GitHub token and put it in the .env file. Also make sure to save the .env file after you paste a token. So I'm just gonna tell Claude that this is done and see what the next steps are. Okay, so as we can see, it tells me the next steps are still need some more input in my Claude.md as far as my strategy, voice, tone, email profile, working preferences. That's fine. We actually have a node after this, the context node, that will do all this for me. And so what I'm actually gonna do is just clear this and then go /start and see if Claude now recognizes everything I already told it. And also, the reason we use GitHub and we had to integrate with it is to actually make sure all this is sort of backed up and saved to GitHub so that it doesn't just exist on our actual computers, but exists out in the cloud too, so that if you ever switch machines, you're able to still use your AIOS. And so you can see here, it's session ready, says the date, who it's working with, my business state, current priorities, all this stuff. And so again, it really doesn't have a bunch of context on who I am yet. However, you can see that this sort of gets the agent ready, and you will know that your AIOS is actually set up and working when this is all correct and accurate, and then it's ready to do whatever task you need it to do. So I'm once again going to clear this and go back to GitHub. And so you can see here, the next node we need to install is this context node. Now, I will now go into Claude Code, and the way you do this for any new node is go /install, and then if you come to the core node installs, you can just come here, copy this path, and then paste it here, and then let Claude go to work. Now, while that's working, I want to explain a bit about what this node actually does. So what it is this fills in the deeper knowledge of what makes Claude genuinely useful for your business. So after this node, Claude knows who your customers are, what you sell, how you communicate, and what you're focused on right now. It doesn't need to ask, it already knows. So what it does is it creates a set of files in your Claude workspace that reads every session when you do that /start, such as who you are, your business, your team, your strategy, and your voice. And it also gives you the option to bring in your existing AI conversation history from Claude or ChatGPT. So if you've been using AI for a while, you have a bunch of chats that is great data for AIOS to understand more about who you are, what sort of tasks you do with AI, and how it can start to actually automate them. And so once you actually install this, so this is what we just ran inside of Claude, it'll have a conversation with you asking about your business, customers, communication style, what you're working on right now, and we'll use all those answers to fill in the context files during the install. And so by the time it's done, you should see real content and not that placeholder text you were seeing before. And remember, the better you answer your questions, the more useful your AIOS becomes. These things get smarter the more data you throw into it. Now, you don't want to throw stuff that doesn't matter into it, but more context, it gets really good at working with it and understanding more about who you are. And so what you'll need to do yourself, and I'd recommend you sort of do while it's installing, is add certain writing samples of yourself, review what Claude actually filled in, don't just accept it, and then perhaps update this quarterly or monthly, depending on how fast your business moves, to make sure that actually reflects what you're focused on right now. So how to know it's working is the exact same as the previous one. Just run start and check that the session summary mentions your business, your role, and your current top priority accurately. So if we go back in here, we can see it's going to ask me a set of questions. So question one is, how would you describe your business to someone who's never heard of it? So I would say Arose AI is an AI consulting and implementation firm aimed at small to medium-sized businesses, which we would say are around 10 to 50 people, just depending on the industry. and we help business owners, implement AI and adjust to a new world. And so question 2 is, who's your customer and what problem do you solve for them? I already sort of addressed this, but my customer are small to medium-sized businesses, specifically their CEO or founder, and helping them implement AI effectively inside of their organization. This could include consulting services, so making sure they actually know where AI would be most effective, as well as implementation if they need any sort of custom software or solution. I use both Gmail and Outlook. And so what Claude's doing now is just sort of noting all this down to add to its context files. I would say my communication style is generally pretty detailed and thorough. Yes, I do. Let me import this now. And so what I'm going to do now is go and grab both my Claude and ChatGPT chat history. And so for Claude, if you come to their settings and then privacy, and you come to your data, you can export your data, and you can basically choose what to export. And so I'm just going to export everything. And so that will get started, and hopefully that should download soon. One other thing I'm just going to tell Claude in this is that also, please note, I'm creating a YouTube demo right now by setting up this AIOS. So I want you to add to the Claude.md and the context, not to share any sensitive information about my company, any clients, or anything that I wouldn't be want to actually be out on the internet or public. So if you run into any point where you find that type of information, please scrub your output and put in like placeholder names that are sort of generic, like client 1, client 2, maybe fake revenue numbers or other numbers related to their operations or my operations. So I'm just adding that, obviously, because this is a YouTube demo, and I want to have some discretion on behalf of the people I work with. And let's see how long this export actually takes. It really depends on how many chats you have. I remember my ChatGPT export actually took a couple of hours. And so hopefully I haven't been using Claude as long. I use ChatGPT. It's like 3 years of data. Hopefully Claude is a bit quicker. So Claude actually did, within a minute or two, send all of my chats via email. I only ended up exporting in the past 30 days just to make sure this tutorial was a bit quicker, because obviously if you wanted to export it all, really the way you do it doesn't change. It just means Claude Code would be sifting through it for a bit longer. So I'm just going to come here. I'm going to copy this. Then I'm going to go back into Claude Code. That's not Claude Code. This is Claude Code. And say I'm going to paste. Oh, it didn't let me paste that file. Can I paste it in here? So all this data, then I'm going to copy the path here. I'm going to paste it there. Then what I'm going to tell Claude is, this is an export of all of my Claude chats for the last 30 days. Please unzip this file and organize all this context accordingly within the AIOS according to the framework. And so now that that is running, we will see how this ends up and see what the actual 6 questions. Okay, so the last question is goal-based, and it asks me what are 2 to 3 things I'm most focused on right now in the business, specifically for this quarter. And so it sort of can guess a bit about what I'm focused on based on the conversation history I've given it. Also, I'd recommend if you are working with a business owner, or if you are a business owner yourself, you probably have a lot of documents you could upload in here during that context step that will give it a lot of information and context. I feel like I keep saying context, but a lot more information and structure to build this world model of what your business actually is. And so that could be things like past statements in terms of income statements. That could be a lot of marketing material, how you actually pitch and want to sort of place your business in terms of actually marketing it and position your business, I should say. And I just wanted to mention that. But what are 2 to 3 things I'm most focused on right now in the business? I would say I want to reach 20,000 subscribers by the end of this summer. And then I also want to scale my business to consistently hitting $20,000 a month in revenue. And so boom, I would say those are my 2 goals that I'm going to say for this demo. And now it should have most of the context, and we can then, after this, run /start to see how it actually did, if it consumed and sort of was able to chew through all of that context. Now you can see all of these conversations were imported. It filled in all these files based on my responses in the context it gave it. And it said, there's a couple things that still need to be filled in. So I could go back and forth with it and say, okay, help me fill in everything left to complete. But thinking outside of the box here, I sort of want to give you options here, because Claude Code is so powerful that it needs some voice samples for me. But what I can do instead of going and copying and pasting a bunch of stuff is I have a bunch of content on YouTube already of me talking for hours and hours on end. So if I go to my channel and I can copy the link up here and then come back in here, I can just tell it, go ahead, use the YT-DLP to actually scrape the transcripts of some of my videos, so that then sort of how I talk and how I pitch myself and my content. And so YT-DLP, I just already know that's sort of a framework for getting YouTube transcripts via the terminal. However, I learned that through Claude Code. If I had asked probably the same thing without explicitly mentioning it, it probably could have done it as well. And so always feel free to, if you have a bunch of LinkedIn posts, try and point it to LinkedIn and see if it could scrape your post and do it for you. Because that way you don't have to go in and manually do all of this work. Some things you will have to do, such as actually grabbing the exported data from Claude. There's no way to do that through Claude Code. Actually, Claude Code might be able to. I don't think it can. They tend to be pretty wary around their data. But you can just see here how I can always add more context, and as more things keep popping up as you keep working with an AIOS, you'll notice more data sources you have that you forgot to connect, and that will be a big point of our next node, which is the intelligence node, which is all about connecting different data sources as we sort of reach the actual reach phase of craft and exit the context section of it. And again, I want to reiterate, because this part might seem a bit boring, setting it all up, just giving it a bunch of information. You might be thinking, am I just turning this thing into another ChatGPT? The point of all this is you're building a world model for your agent to actually go out and understand exactly what your business needs, so that when you add actions to it and give it actual specific functionality to automate things, it does it the correct way every time with full context, similar to how you, as a business owner or founder, need full context to complete any task in your business. So does the AI. And so here you can see it just built all of this. And so now that a bunch of that context is set up, I'm going to clear this chat. I'm going to go /start. And I'm going to see what it comes up with now. Because remember before, it really just knew my name and my company name and generally what I did. So hopefully now it will know a lot more about me. And so here you can see it says it's session ready, who I'm working with, current priorities, and all of that. And so you can see it has a general context about who I am, because it was able to read through each of these files. And now I could continue to have a conversation with it. However, we're not done just yet. We do have to go to the next node. And These nodes, again, are the foundation nodes. And so the next one is the intelligence node, which we will find over here. So if I come back to the core node installs, come to intelligence node, then come to the readme.md, I can just copy this command once again, go back into Claude, paste it, and it will begin to install that. Now, what is the intelligence node? This is the node that connects Claude to your actual live business data. So remember, we were talking about static versus live data previously. This is what connects it to the live data. So we're giving it all the static data. My name's not going to change. My company and my goals genuinely don't change that often. However, my revenue day-to-day might change. It certainly does week to week. The amount of views on my YouTube changes like every single minute. And so keeping up with that sort of data, we don't want to keep copying and pasting that into Claude. And so that's what the intelligence node exists for. And so it pulls numbers from the tools we're already using, such as YouTube, Stripe, Gmail, Outlook, Fireflies, an AI note taker. It stores them locally and gives Claude a live view of what's happening in your business every day. So before this node, Claude knows about your business only from what you've told it. And so after this node, it can see everything that's happening, compare that to what you've told it, and actually come up with new ideas and sort of act as an actual assistant where you can really run your company from Claude Code. And that's why we call it an operating system. And so what it does is this node installs collectors, which are small programs that run in the background and will pull data from your connected tools on a schedule. So every morning, they can update a snapshot of your business numbers, or if you ask it to do a specific task, it can go reference the numbers, reference whatever platforms you're connecting to. And it's not just about getting data. Once I connect it to my Gmail or Outlook, my AIOS now has the functionality to actually send emails for me. And so if I want to decide to add a different action later, a different node or skill later that actually sends emails, I don't have to connect Gmail or Outlook at that point because it's already connected, which is another benefit. And so I just say, you only connect the tools you actually use, and so Claude can skip everything else. And so once it's running, you also get a file called reach/metrics.md that Claude reads every session that you open. So when you run /start, and we have an extra skill. I want to see where I can find my skills in here. Yeah, we have an extra one /pulse where you can actually check the pulse on your business and see how everything is going and see it from a bird's eye view is what that skill is specifically for. So what actually happens when we install it is Claude will ask you for what tools you use before you do anything. You'll confirm which sources you want to connect, and Claude will tell you exactly what it's going to set up, what it's skipping, and it'll walk you through each connection one at a time. And so some connections just need a key you copy and paste, such as GitHub. Others, like Gmail or Outlook, need you to actually sign in through a browser once, so Claude has permission to read your inbox. But you only do this once, and then after that, it's automatic. Claude will also set up a daily schedule, so everything runs automatically in the background without you having to think about it. Now, what you'll need to do yourself, which you're about to see, is actually give it the API keys, give it the connections, make sure Claude is authorized to use everything. And how to know it's working is after you install it, you could run /start again. It might give you some of that data, but /pulse is meant specifically to return real numbers from your business and cross-reference them with the goals you already told Claude. And so if you see your data in there, you are good. It's working properly. And if there is certain data you don't see, because some of these connections can be a bit finicky or not work as intended, then just work through that with Claude, mention it to it, and you can troubleshoot from there. So if we go back into Claude, you can see here the first question it asked me is if there is a YouTube channel I want to track. Now, I'll probably change this. Most of you guys aren't YouTubers, but you could assume this could be any sort of data source or social media source you want to track, such as perhaps LinkedIn, although their connection isn't great, but Twitter, anything like that. And so I actually do have a YouTube channel, so I'm going to say yes, I do have a YouTube channel I want to track. I want to integrate into it using the vidIQ API. I do that because I have vidIQ to actually track all my metrics, and that tends to be a bit more robust than the actual YouTube API. It's also easier to get because YouTube is a bit rough. And so you can see here, like, it'll say like this node was built for this, but it can build it to match whatever you want. Do I use a payment processor for revenue? Yes, I bank with Mercury. I use Stripe for processing invoices and stuff, but I don't want to connect those right now because this is just a demo. One of the most valuable things I've learned, and a lot of people are wary of it, but connecting your payments gives you like the clearest view of your business. I mean, money is the blood of any business, every business. You need it to keep going, to keep operating. It's what most people are optimizing for, whether they're optimizing for better profit margins or more revenue. It's all about making more money. And so definitely do that integration. It's worth it. Claude, like, I wouldn't worry that much about data privacy unless you really have you're in like a very big organization and there's some reason you have to keep that private. Then there's other ways around that, like using a VPS. But which email do I use? So Claude actually already knows that. I already told you that before. Do you remember? Yep, you can see it knows there. You can skip email also. The reason I'm skipping email is because I just, like, for demo purposes, I don't have to, like, connecting each of these platforms is generally more or less the same for each one. And email tends to be a bit more involved, and Claude, it just has more steps, but Claude will walk you through that for connecting whatever it is. I'm going to say yes, I use Fireflies for my meeting transcription, and then I'm on Windows. I already told Claude that, but it likes to be to make sure. And so yes, that looks good. Now, if you have any other tools that you use within your business, most companies have a pretty robust tool stack. And it depends industry to industry which ones you use, such as like QuickBooks for accounting. Maybe you have a bunch of data in your Google Drive. It's always good to connect that. And so, the more things you can connect here, the better. But at least for a starting point, I sort of wanted to cover, the main things that you use. A lot of people that are going to be implementing AIOS already have an AI note taker for their meetings. That's a great source of data, one of the best sources of data if you have a bunch of meetings in there. And so it is asking me two different questions. Do I have a vidIQ API key, or are you working from an account login? I'm going to say I have an API key. And I'm going to say I want just basic stats. And so I just grabbed the vidIQ API key. Now, one thing I do want to mention is the difference between API keys and MCP. MCP, or Model Context Protocol, works essentially the exact same as an API key from a user perspective of it goes out and grabs data and gives it access to whatever platform you're connecting to. The only difference in terms of like usability from Claude Code, like not just like technical differences in how it was made, is that MCP tends to use up a lot more context inside of Claude. And so especially if you're only on the $20 a month plan, that can muddy up not only making your responses from Claude a bit worse because it's just dealing with a bunch more information it doesn't need, but you can run through your usage a lot quicker as well. So if there is an API key available, I tend to prefer that, because even if you use a bunch of different APIs, the MCP, like, you just rarely use every single API connection with a company to where the MCP would be more useful than a specific API key. And AI is able to figure out which APIs to use. It can go out and read the documentation. Claude will do that automatically. So I tend to just prefer API keys over MCP. Now, it just gave me this, so I'm going to paste this into the .env folder real quick. So one thing I noticed was that Claude again asked me to paste the token in here, but I want to paste it manually myself. And I don't see a vidIQ place to actually paste it inside of here. And so I'm going to say I will paste them, add vid IQ placeholder to the .env. And so that's all you have to say, and it'll add that to your .env. And then you can go in, find that place, and actually paste it. Now you can see here it is also asking for my Fireflies API key, so I'm going to go and grab it real quick. Or actually what I'm going to do instead is pretend like I don't know how to find the API key. I'm going to say, I don't know where to find my Fireflies API key. Can you tell me how to actually find it in their dashboard? Again, I just want to demonstrate that Claude will help you walk through all of this with you. And so you should utilize that and use that to your advantage. And so you can see here, it tells me exactly where to find my API key. So I can literally just press on this link. It'll take me to Fireflies, and I can find it from there. So I just gave it my API key. So I'm going to say done. You have both API keys. And it will go in and check. It can read through there. It can see if it has them or not. It says my channel ID is still empty. Oh, so my channel ID is actually something different. I thought it was just the @TommyChrist. Wow, I have to Control F to find my channel ID. Okay, so let's do that. So now it tells me an easier way of doing it from YouTube Studio. So let me go do that real quick. Okay, so I was able to find it. So I'm just going to say done here. And let's see what this creates. Now, once again, like I was mentioning, you can connect a lot more platforms here. And I would recommend you actually spend a good amount, 30 minutes to an hour, trying to connect everything in this intelligence stage. Right now, you can pause this course. You can go. It's a bit boring. Maybe throw on some music, sort of walk Claude through, what you actually do on a day-to-day basis, all the tools you use, and work from there. And so all three, so now let's initialize the database. I'm just going to ask Claude if it can do that for me. Can you do for me? Because usually, Claude's able to do a lot of this on its own. So I actually goofed a little bit, and I misunderstood. I thought they had specific API keys, but the API keys are only for their MCP. And it uses up some credits. So Claude actually figured that out for me. I'm going to tell it, keep vidIQ. We can just use their MCP instead. So again, I know I was just hating on MCP. If I, again, had the choice between an API or MCP, I would choose the API. But if MCP is all they have, you sort of have to go with that. I would be careful about implementing too many tools with MCP, though, especially because in my actual AIOS, I have 10, 15 different connectors in there. And so that can really build a lot of context and use up a lot of usage from Claude that is just unnecessary. It's not adding anything to the AIOS. It's not making it any more effective. And so being able to know those things and differentiate between APIs and MCP is not only useful for you personally in making your AIOS and Claude workspace more effective, but if you are going to sell this to clients, it's good to be educated on that and be able to educate them on that because it positions you as an expert. Okay, so now that this is done, it says everything's live, and it gives me a bit of context about the actual MCP. Again, it uses credits, so Claude's actually able to discern, the best way to actually use these credits, especially because this is something we're planning on running daily. And speaking of that, it actually wants us to start creating a task now to run these daily. I don't want to do that quite yet, and so I'll make sure that once this video is actually published, I will again update all of these nodes to make sure they run as intended. Again, some of these sort of bled into each other as I created the different nodes because I obviously set up my own AIOS myself, and then sort of created these nodes based on what I found useful day to day. And so it's not as clearly defined. So I'm actually not going to do that now. But now that we have all this information, I am going to clear this. And once again, as we saw in GitHub and in the README, the way to actually test and make sure this is working is by running /pulse and seeing what this returns back. So we should see our live data. And so it says the intelligence node is not connected yet. So if I go back and I resume the previous conversation, so here we are, and I'm just going to tell Claude, I just tried running /pulse, and it said this node wasn't installed yet. I don't want to do the actual task scheduling or daily reports until later. I just wanted to connect all my data sources. And I'm also going to switch this to bypass permissions. Make the questions more robust and less specific. Okay, so the issue here is that the node was made assuming that this AIOS would be the root folder and not a folder inside of the AIOS demo YouTube. And so it gave me two options, but I know I just want to change that. And again, this will be changed. These issues you're seeing now, I will iron out. And so when you're following along, you probably actually won't even run into these. So I'll just tell it, no, I want you to update every command to prefix the AIOS on all those paths. I want to be able to run from whatever folder, from this AIOS demo YouTube folder. And so once that is done, we'll be back here and hopefully /pulse runs perfectly at that point. Okay, so it just got done updating all those files. So let's see if /pulse works. So again, when starting any new workspace, you want to use /start just to make sure it loads all of that context. Claude Code's working properly and everything's doing good. So you can see, the session's ready. And then now I want to say /pulse. Okay, so I'm not sure what the issue was, but I basically just copy and pasted everything and told it to fix it, and it did. You can see I haven't ran /pulse yet, but now when I run /start, it tells me my business state in terms of my YouTube and everything like that and my current priorities. And so now I want to run /pulse, and it should actually give me something sort of similar to this, but let's see. So I'm gonna click yes here. And I'm again gonna turn on bypass permissions so it can just run whenever it wants. And so you can see here, obviously I don't have a ton of data sources connected. And so you can see, these are the only metrics I have. And then, the data freshness in terms of, how recently it collected it. And, as you add more sources, you can update the /pulse command to include those. So this is just, a quick overview. And you can see here, it also says when, perhaps pieces of data are missing. And so, I could go back and forth with it and say, okay, like that's an issue. I really need, to see my top videos or whatever. How can we actually start to see that, see top performers, etc. It'll walk you through and perhaps explore different options for that. So I'm going to go /clear here. And so now you can see we have the vault ready. And so we have everything and we can push it to a GitHub. It's actually a part I forgot about here that I should have mentioned earlier. And so if we go back to here and we go back to the big README for everything, you can see we have this skill that, okay, so now that we have installed 3 major core nodes, I actually do want to push all of this to GitHub. And the way you would do that is I've already connected my GitHub API key. So I'm just going to tell it, I want to push all this to a private repository on GitHub just to make sure that everything's keeping up, that the AIOS is backed up on there, and that I can see all the version history on there as well. Would you be able to create a repository on GitHub for me and push everything there? Now, honestly, I'm not sure if Claude Code can actually create a repository. I might have to do it myself, but I know it can actually push things to the repository. But if it could create it itself, that would be fantastic. So here we go. For this GitHub repository, AIOS demo YouTube is what I want to name it. And then GitHub account should be under the personal account. So I just went through a long back and forth with Claude, and I came to the conclusion that I'd just rather not mess around with having it create a repo. It ended up updating this one with the samples and everything, which I didn't want to do because this is just a template. And so I had to reverse that. So basically, the way you push it to GitHub is you go to GitHub, GitHub, new repository. And this is super easy, so don't get wigged out by this. Name it whatever you want. So I'm going to say demo YouTube. And then make sure it's private. You really don't want a public repo unless you're making content like this and you're sharing it, like I am with the other one. And so once I create this repository, you'll see it'll give me a couple ways to set it up. I just like to copy and paste all of this, throw it into Claude, and say, push everything to this repository. It'll do it super quick, and that's just the best way to go about this. I was thinking, if Claude was able to create the repository for us, it was simple enough, that'd be a bit easier because we can just do it all within the Claude Code window, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. And so we can now see it said it pushed everything to GitHub. So if we go back to this repository we just made, refresh this, you can see everything is in here. And again, since we forked the original AIOS, you have a bunch of like these readmes and stuff, which are fine now as you're setting it up. But once you actually finish this course, feel free to just tell Claude to like clean everything up because you don't end up needing like this README for this operating system. Or you could tell it to modify it to make it specific to you, because when you're using it for personal use, there's not a whole lot of like use for this. But you can see here that it now has access, and this exists on the cloud. So if you accidentally delete all of your folders, as long as you're regularly pushing and updating on the GitHub when you make big changes or every so often, things should be all good. It's also, GitHub provides a lot of other functionality in terms of like version history, pull requests, etc. If you ever want to go back to a previous version of your AIOS. So this is important whether you're using it for personal use or setting this up for a company or client. Obviously, this matters a lot. And so going back to here, I'm just going to clear this. We now, just to recap, have set up our Vault node. So the infrastructure, making sure it knows what's going on inside of GitHub. We've set up the context node, so that it has the general context, the static context about our business and who we are. And third, we have the intelligence node. So it's able to access outside data from our company, as well as run the /pulse command that is able to sort of let us know or notify us every time as well as it's able to run the /pulse command, which helps us keep a pulse on our business and check and make sure everything's going well. Okay, so I actually just made a change to the GitHub. I know I was saying I was making changes, but this one, I started recording the next section, and I realized I did have to make a change to the order of some of this. So the mobile node is now node 4, the coffee debrief is now node 5, despite the mobile node being a flow node and this being an action node, which I know sort of breaks up the craft framework, but the coffee debrief, it works better when you already have mobile installed, because the cool thing about it is that you get the debrief onto your phone and it's sent automatically every morning. And so what I want to set up first is this mobile node, which lets you interact with your AIOS on the go through your phone through a platform called Telegram. And so I'm going to go /install and then take the path of this mobile node and paste it in there. And it'll start to do that. And so basically, I know it still says 5 here. I'll update this after, but I just want to make that change on the fly. So what this node does is it creates a Telegram bot connected to your workspace. And so you can message it like you message a person or like you message Claude. So you can ask any business questions, query about your numbers, capture a specific task you want done, and it can log that. And it will respond based on like your actual context and data. So it's essentially allowing you to talk to your AIOS on the go. Now, the problem with it is that it's stateless. And so where does it mention this? There we go. So the bot is stateless, meaning it doesn't carry memory between messages. So it's really just best for like single questions and quick lookups and not long back and forth sessions. And so like for deeper, more intense work, Claude Code on your computer is what you'll want to use. However, if your AIOS is already set up the way you want it, using it on the go will be perfectly fine. And so here's a couple of things it can do. It can answer business questions, making sure it uses your context and live data. It responds in whatever style you set, and there's a couple of options there that I just sort of out of the box give you. It lets you send voice notes. I'm actually not going to set up that part. You can implement like OpenAI Whisper or something to actually transcribe voice notes. I don't care that much about voice notes. I also already have Whisper Flow, as you see here, and that also comes as an app that I can have on my phone. It also accepts messages that go straight to our task inbox, which is something you'll see in the productivity node and is related to the actual tuning of the agent. And it only responds to you or whoever you authorize, and so everyone gets locked out. Unless, of course, they somehow like stole your phone. And so what you'll need to actually do, I'll just show you here. So first, I'm going to zoom in on this. I'll get rid of this side view. And so first it asked me, do I want to send voice notes? I don't. I'm fine with text only, honestly. I know some people really prefer voice notes. And then do I want the bot to generate formatted PDF reports? Yes. Generate charts and graphs. No, I don't think I need charts and graphs. And then it will run on Windows. And so there we go. I'm going to hit yes. And so my .env actually was populated with a couple of things like the Telegram bot token and some other stuff prior, because I had one, like I mentioned, sort of started setting this up and I wanted to revise it. But I'm going to tell it, I actually want to do the Telegram integration all from the very beginning. So can you run through that with me? And now we will see how this goes. So first, obviously, you'll need to install Telegram. But then it asks us to create a new Telegram bot and reply with the token. So basically how that will go is you will come into Telegram, come to chats, and if you search up @botfather, you'll see this person will show up. And if you click start, you're able to chat with this bot, and this basically allows you to create new AI bots through Telegram. And the reason we're using Telegram is it's just really friendly to creating AI bots and connecting with systems like Claude Code. And so we're going to start by typing in new bot, and that will be our command. What I want to call it is arose YouTube demo, or not arose, AIOS. And then we need a actual name that ends in bot. So I'm just gonna go underscore bot, then add another underscore over here. So it'll be AIOS YouTube bot. And then I will copy this token here. You can just click on it to copy it, apparently. And then I will paste this in my .env. Now I just got done pasting that in my .env, so I will say done. I will just say it has the right one, because I don't want to paste it in the chat. And now we have to create a Telegram group. So basically, so what I will do is I will come down here to this pencil, and this works the exact same if you were doing this on the actual mobile app. I'll actually zoom in a bit so you can see a bit better. I will go new group, and then I want to add this AIOS YouTube bot. And so I'll type in AIOS underscore YouTube underscore bot. And there we go, we have it right here. And then that will be our new group. So once you are inside of the group, what you want to do is come up to these three bars over here. So you click on the group, you come to the three bars. I actually think you can do it over, I think you can only do it over here. Come to group info, and then you want to click on this pencil up here, which then lets you edit the administrators. You want to add this AIOS YouTube bot demo as an admin. So you want to give it all permissions it needs. I guess it doesn't have to remain anonymous, but I'll give that a check mark there. So you can see we just promoted it. And then what we need to do after is make sure this topics is enabled. And so going back here, give it all administrator permissions, edited, so say that is done. And what I'm actually going to do is then bring this down, close this, so that we can see this right here as we continue working. And so what it wants us to do, so I'll say run this in the terminal for me. And then we have to send a message in the group while that is running. So we just sent the message, it ran, said it's still empty. Okay, so the issue was resolved. It actually wasn't, it was Claude Code making the error. So it didn't go and grab the new bot ID I had put in .env from the previous one, because I created a new bot, obviously, for the demo. So I told it, like, we're using a different bot. And so it used the correct ID. Now it's working. And now we are on to the next step. So it was able to grab the chat ID from here. I'm going to drag this back. And now it's asking us for an Anthropic API key, obviously because it needs to actually generate the response and connect to Claude. However, the cool thing is we can actually just use our existing Claude plan. And so all you have to do is tell it that. I'd rather just use my existing Claude subscription instead of putting in the API key. Now, you can use the API key, but when you're already paying for a plan, I'd rather just use the usage on that plan. So Claude, once again, sort of goofed up and basically said we needed to use the API key, which is false. And so now it's having us install some dependencies. So I'm just telling it to do it for me. Again, I will try and fix these nodes as much as I can, but sometimes you just deal with the variability of AI and ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, of AI. Sorry, it's been a long time recording. And so what you'll see is that it's really helpful to have a course like this because I'm able to tell you what I have been able to do with the AIOS, and you don't have to sort of default to whatever Claude wants to do. Because when I actually was originally trying to connect Telegram, I tried a bunch of different ways. I tried Discord bots, whatever, and it took a really long time to actually get this mobile node up and going. but this has been the most effective way for me, even though, installing it here, we've run into some issues, but that's how it goes, especially when you're recording a video. It loves to run into some issues. So I'll be back once this is done, and I'll update you then. So it just came back with this message to run that, and let's just tell it you run it for me. And then let me go into here and see what's going on and see if it sends back anything. And so as you can see, the AI just sent me a message saying, hey, what are you working on? I'm going to go /new and ask it, what is my YouTube views? And let's see, it should be able to respond. So I want to say, what are my YouTube views? And so you can see the agent was typing for a bit there. But after I did, so I guess I just have to do /new. Sorry, this is all stuff I just learned, and I want to get it out to you guys as soon as possible. And you can see, sort of took the pulse. It actually ran the pulse command when I asked about my YouTube views. You can see there's a couple characters in here that's sort of messing up. It's probably characters that it can show in its own dashboard, but Telegram doesn't recognize. And then you can see my subscribers and the date, the total views and the date. So you can imagine, as you add more connections, more context to your AIOS, this Telegram chat becomes a whole lot more effective. It's honestly something that I haven't used that much. I'm usually by my computer anyways, especially when I have to record videos. I work from home, but so many business owners do work on the go. They're on the go, they're always on their phone, they're trying to get stuff done. And so working from your phone through an app like Telegram, being able to interact with your AIOS is just a huge jump in productivity. And it doesn't tie you to your office, and it actually allows you, funny enough, to be a lot more present, whether that's to do things in your own life, travel, whatever that might be, or just get your time back so that you're not at the office all the time. And so again, if you want to start a new chat, again, you can just go /new, and then you can continue to converse with the actual agent. Now, the next thing I do want to cover now that we've set that up is the actual coffee debrief. And this is cool because it utilizes this mobile node from before to automatically every morning send a new sort of debrief to your phone. Now, you can actually run it from just the Claude desktop. I used to do this before I found a good way to run it from Telegram, but now I really like to wake up and actually get this debrief. Another thing I do want to mention for the mobile node is that unfortunately you do have to leave your computer open the entire time you will be using it. If you shut off your computer or it dies, you won't be able to continue chatting with the bot. So what I've done is pretty much every computer, Windows, Mac, has some way of making sure it doesn't go to sleep after a certain amount of time. And so I basically just turn that on for my computer so that it doesn't automatically shut off. I leave it plugged in pretty much all the time, at least when I leave the house. So now that that is done, the next node we will install, which is actually the only action we will be installing in this course. I have mentioned that actions are highly personal to what you're trying to achieve and do day to day. But I do believe the coffee debrief is something that literally every single person, whether you're a business owner or an employee, whether you run a plumbing company or you run a fully online business, and whether that business has 10 people or 1,000 people, this is something that is useful for literally everyone. And what it is it's basically a node that takes everything that the intelligence node actually collects. So that's all your metrics, your emails, your meeting summaries, everything that might change day to day, and creates a structured morning sort of intelligence report or a debrief you can have with your coffee and read. So it might generate a chart of your most important number and then send the whole thing to your Telegram before you start your day. And we're actually able to schedule it so it does that every single morning. So what it does is each morning it collects all those numbers. So it'll break down what happened yesterday in your business, any numbers actually moved. It'll filter through your emails that actually matter. That's really useful for me. I used to wake up and I'd have to read through all these emails, especially because I make YouTube videos. My email is super easy to find. There's just so much junk in there. It'll also address what came up in recent meetings and whatever deserves your attention today. So diving into this, let's copy this, come over here and start installing it. I'm going to turn on bypass permissions here and get along with it. Now, while that is generating, I do want to mention that I did make about a 40-minute video all about the coffee debrief here. That coffee debrief looked a bit different. I sort of modified it to actually schedule on Telegram. However, there were some other features in that action that I created that are a bit different. I go a bit more in depth in how, breaking down how the coffee debrief actually works. I also give a short overview of what an AIOS actually is. And so I would say this course is much more comprehensive at giving you a full picture. But if you would be looking for more content like this, I definitely recommend giving that a watch. It might give you some other ideas on how to potentially set up some of your actions in your workspace, like the coffee debrief. But coming back to Claude, we can see here that the environment already has Gemini Flash installed. Let me zoom in here. That's a bit hard to see. Gemini Flash installed, and that's the recommended option for us to actually generate these coffee debriefs. It's recommended just because it's really cheap, and when you're compiling all the information, you don't need a super smart model to help you out. And so I'll say yes, let's use Gemini. If you don't have the Gemini API key or you want to use a different API key, it will show you how to do that if you ask it to. And then how much detail do I want my morning brief? And so I'll say the founder preset, which is just a bit quicker, a bit briefer, is perfectly good with me. Is this the single most important number in my business right now? I'll just say yes. I wouldn't say YouTube subscribers always is, but it's something I'm definitely focused on right now. And then when do I want my it to be delivered? 7 a.m. works, although it might not be up that early every day. And then is there anything specific I want my brief to cover? No. Again, you can get a lot more personal with this, and you can start to see how the coffee debrief skill will go a lot smoother if you provide a ton of context and you hook up a bunch more nodes, because your AIOS starts to figure out what's important to you, what it needs to focus on, and stuff like that. And so this is where it really feeds into each other, and you can see as you build up these different layers inside of your AIOS, it gets a lot more powerful. And that goes for whether you're building it for yourself or a company. Okay, so now the coffee debrief is actually going to run through 5 different steps here. And the first one is testing the prompt actual assembler. And so once we run this, it should print a prompt containing all of this information. And essentially what this does is in each step, we're making sure the coffee debrief is working perfectly so that you're not running the entire pipeline and then you figure out the actual prompt in there and what the brief is creating you don't want. And so you're able to check at each of these points. So I'm just going to tell it to run step 1. We can check that output. If it's good, we can move on to step 2, and then we can move on to step 3 if step 2 is good, etc. And we're able to fix it anywhere here. Okay, now I want to say run step 2. It said it worked. We can see the system prompt here if we want to check that out. All right, so it told me step 2 passes. It generated a full brief, but there were a couple things worth noting. And so you can always ask it to show the full output to you in here. You can also click on any of these and see the full output. And then I would just say run it for me. And now we'll test step 3, which is generating some sort of dashboard or image. Obviously a lot of companies are tracking key metrics day to day. Think of an e-commerce business, you might be checking your sales day to day. And being able to see a chart each day for that is really cool and really useful. It helps you visualize the data, which it sounds simple, sounds like 1,000 to 2,000. You can just see the difference, but it's a lot different to see it on a graph, see trends, etc. All right, so it just said we ran step 4, which is the actual test message sent, but it seems like okay, so it ran step 3 and then immediately went to step 4. So we can click here to see the image. I guess not. Let me see what it sent in Telegram. Okay, here we go. So in Telegram, you can see this is working. It did send twice, so I'm going to tell it that. This was the graph it created. My subscribers have not changed much because it doesn't have any trailing data. It just has today's data. And I will say it worked. However, it sent twice to Telegram. So it looks like it misunderstood what I said a bit. I said like it just sent 2 messages, but it actually sent the same 2 messages twice in a row. So I'm going to send it a screenshot just to let it know. But actually it did this. But when it sent the full test here, or actual test, it sent the chart and it didn't send this twice. So maybe I don't have to fix it now that I see this. But now what I want to do is I want to tell it to schedule it for 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock today. You can see that's in 6 minutes. So I'm going to tell it, please schedule the next brief to send at 4 o'clock today, which is in 6 minutes. I want to make sure the actual task scheduler works. Now, the way these AI do this is each sort of operating system, and I'm not talking about AI operating systems, I'm talking about Mac, Windows, Linux. Each of them has their own way of actually scheduling tasks and keeping track of time. And so Windows has the task scheduler. I'm like 95% sure it's called. Mac uses something called cron jobs. And then I'm not sure what it is on Linux, but Claude already knows your operating system. I made sure that was a question I baked in the earlier node. So it should be able, if you just tell it to schedule for a specific time, should be able to recognize whether it has to use cron, whether it has to use the task scheduler just based on the operating system it's within. But it is good to know that that could be a potential place that this goes wrong. And for any future builds or actions, you can explicitly mention that you want it to be set on like, you want it to be like a cron job that runs every day at X amount, X time, or runs every hour or 2, etc. So the next runtime is at 4 p.m. And so I am going to sit here for about 5 minutes, wait for that to come through, and then at that point it will be confirmed that this is all running perfectly. I can go back and tell it to start scheduling it for 7 a.m. every single day and getting that cadence of being able to roll out of bed with my AIOS fully briefing me for the day. So 4 p.m. just hit. Let's see when this message comes through. Obviously, it takes a second or two for it to actually generate. And so let's see. So we can see it just sent the image, and now the actual text should follow soon. Obviously, if you need it like directly at 7, I recommend scheduling it for 6:58 or 6:59. But a minute or two delay is not too bad. I do want to mention, as we're still waiting for this to come through, another thing, just like actually using Telegram away from your computer will have to be open overnight. It can't operate and run these jobs and check the times when it's closed. So I do recommend, just making your computer sort of act as like a desktop when you're away from it, plugging it in, making sure it's still open, making sure you turn on the settings that allow it to actually, keep its power on overnight, and so it doesn't go to sleep. Because a lot of these really powerful uses of the AIOS are because you can actually schedule these tasks, and that flow sort of layer that we're talking about for the AIOS. Additionally, I know a lot of people with the OpenClaw thing bought a lot of Mac Minis. If you do buy a smaller computer like that, you can also just schedule things on those as well. And so that way you can take your laptop elsewhere if you need it. But honestly, for me and other founders I know that are running pretty big companies, just running it off their laptop is more than fine. So it's now 4:03, and I'm starting to think this other part of the message isn't going to come through. So I'm going to tell that to Claude. I'm going to say, hey, only the graph came through at 4 p.m. The other full brief message didn't come through. Can you go research that and make sure everything's good? So I just told it, and it said I had to test again. And so the fix was removing some sort of markdown as it was trying to send it with bold text, and Telegram basically rejected that. So I'm not sure why that happened there, but you can see it sent through again. And you can obviously continue to test this, troubleshoot it, read through it, ask for stuff you do or don't want. Another thing I enjoy doing is if you are going to connect your Google Drive, I like to sort of store them in a file there where it can grab each brief, and it'll automatically create a Google Doc as long as sending the message, and it can store all of them in the same folder in your Google Drive. Especially if you are going for a more in-depth brief every morning that's a bit longer, maybe closer to 8 to 10 minutes to read, I would recommend at that point not sending it all through Telegram, because Telegram actually has like a limit to how big their messages can be. And so if you try and send a huge amount of text, it just doesn't look great. And instead sending like some sort of executive summary and then having it linked to that Google Doc you created, which is exactly what I did in that coffee debrief video I showed earlier. But now that we have this daily scheduling actually set up, it's time to move on to our last and final node, which is the productivity node. Now, once again, big credit to Liam Otley, who put me on to the GTD method, getting things done. Now, I do know there is a whole book around this, but he was the one who specifically sort of ticked me off to actually using it in the context of like AI and AIOS, where I think it fits like pretty much perfectly, this methodology. And it's a 5-step stress-free productivity system that boosts efficiency by moving tasks from your mind to an external organized system. And so you can just already sort of feel how the AIOS was literally built for this, because it is meant as an external organized system that sort of acts as your second brain, your mind, whatever, and having full context. So going through and reading what it is, it's a full system. It has a capture inbox. It'll capture your active projects, any sort of delegated items, future ideas, and a weekly review so you actually look forward to running and making sure, weekly, you're not losing all these things you actually store inside of there. So this is a fix, especially if you have a bunch of ideas and information scattered across a bunch of different apps. And so there's 5 main parts, as it mentioned. And so there's your inbox, your projects, your next actions, things you're waiting for, and then like the someday maybes. And then, those all get bundled up into the weekly review. And so now let's run this. So coming back to Claude, I'm going to clear here. I'm going to go /start. And actually, before we run this, I am going to make sure we push everything to GitHub now that we have installed a brand new node. So I'll just get that ready. And I also want you to push all of this to GitHub and making sure everything's backed up. And so it is asking me the GitHub repository name. I believe it was the AIOS. And actually, it seems like it doesn't recognize the existing GitHub repo that I already had built it into. So obviously, if you do want to come and find all your GitHub repos, you can just find them in here. I have a couple different ones. Here is the AIOS AI demo YouTube. This is what we're going to be pushing into. And so I can just copy this here and say, this is the one we're pushing into. You should already have access to it. And so I'm just going to make a pull request there to actually make sure everything's good. So boom, all of that was committed. So I'm going to /clear again. So you should get into the habit of pushing to GitHub anytime, especially when you make major changes. So it's a good habit. You can just tell it. It's super easy to tell it to push to GitHub. And so I'm once again going to start, make sure everything is good, and then get ready to /install this final node, the productivity node. So I'm going to copy this path, paste that there, and everything looks good. I'll start to load that up just so that starts running now, and I will come back once it starts to actually ask us the questions. Okay, so first question, what are the main areas of your life and work that you are responsible for? And so of this list, I'll just pick a couple. And so I will say business, clients, content, as well as, let's just focus on those 3 right now. So business, clients, content, that's what we're going to focus on. I'll see where it takes us there. So 3 to 5 projects I'm actively working on. I'm working on an AIOS full course for my content. I'm working on a voice agent project in my business, and let's just focus on those 2 for right now. So again, I don't want to give away too much about what I'm working on here, but those are 2 good ones. So is there anything sitting in your brain right now that you've been meaning to do but haven't captured anywhere? So sort of just brain dump a bunch of things. Yes, I want to start a cold outreach system for my my agency, AIOS AI. Boom, we got that one done. What time and day works best for your daily review? I would say Friday at 5 p.m. is perfect. Fifth, this does have some default tags. I'm fine with those. If you find out you want more tags, I'll show you what those are in a second. No, I don't. We don't have any sort of physical capture. So this is what it's going to set up. All these areas, 2 different projects, our inbox, which will have 1 thing, some context tags, a weekly review, and then it's skipping the physical capture. So I'm going to say yes, run it. And so the cool thing about this is this is where a couple more of the skills that I've actually built out for you come into play. So after you install this, the habit is really most of the work you'll be doing, getting the habit of making sure you actually capture everything as it comes up. You're able to brain dump into the AIOS. You don't try and organize everything on the fly. If you actually process your inbox regularly, so I don't know if that's weekly, daily, depends like how big the projects are you include in there. But I have a whole skill / process that you can run, and Claude will actually work with you to chew through all of these ideas, ask you questions, sort of spitball back and forth with you. And then once a week, running review on whatever day you chose during the setup, which we have already done. And so just without the weekly review, the system goes stale pretty easily. And so if you keep running the review, it maintains the structure of it. You don't have a bunch of other things, projects that you didn't actually complete or go forward with, or ideas that you haven't chewed through inside of there. And so you really want to try and flush it out every week with the review. And then how to actually know it's working is we'll run /process in Claude Code with at least a few items in our inbox. And Claude should walk you through at each one, ask what it is and what the next step is, and route it to the right place. And then at the end, our inbox should be empty, and those items will appear in our projects or next actions. So if that works, then the system is doing what it's supposed to do. So this is a way for you to become more productive within your AIOS, start to organize a bunch of your thoughts, and it doubles as adding more context, because now all of the big things and big pieces of work and projects you're doing inside your business live inside your AIOS. So coming back to Claude, let's see. So it wants us to run /process. So let's do that right now. And again, I know we haven't covered the skills that much, but you can always come back to the README and see all the skills I've given you access to in here. And so /process will clear our task inbox, where Claude will route everything to the right place. So build a cold outreach system for Rose AI. Is it actionable? Yes. Next physical location, it's a product, or it's a project. So I suggest the next action is define the outreach target, who to reach, what channel, and what the offer is. That's the first real decision that unlocks everything else. Does that next action sound right, or would you phrase it differently? Yes, it should go under business. And yeah, I agree, that's the next action to do. And so you can see it is reading everything, and it's moving it over to the next actions.md. And so it's sort of clearing out this inbox for me. So the inbox is cleared, gives me a summary and all of that. And now we have completed implementing all 6 nodes. Now, we're not quite done yet, because there's a couple other skills I want to go over. So we can run this /audit, which will actually help us score how complete and healthy our AIOS is. And so this is something you can run as often as you'd like. Now, again, it's not perfect. AI tends to be pretty generous with how it thinks about things. So we'll see what audit score actually comes back. It should be pretty low. It doesn't know a ton about my business, so it doesn't know everything it can automate, because I didn't give it a ton of information in the context, in the intelligence. But I am curious to see what it comes back with. So you can see here, it did give me a pretty generous score. It said my flow was 20 out of 20, which I guess is fair, because there's not much else you need other than the mobile node and scheduling some things. I would agree that my context it's probably lower than a 10 out of 20, and my reach should definitely be lower than a 17 out of 20. But now we can see how that works. And lastly, I want to run /tune. And coming back here, what /tune does is it'll give you recommendations for what to improve or automate next based on all the context it has. So, obviously the more you give it information about your workflow, the better this will work. Same with the audit. The more it knows about your business, the more it knows how much context it does or doesn't actually have. And so let's see what tune comes back with. Okay, so to finish the actual tuning skill, it's asked me a couple of questions. So the email intelligence was skipped during the intelligence node. Is that permanent? Eventually, but keep it skipped. The demo setup's fine. The cold outreach system, I haven't sat down to do it. On what task have you done manually more than 3 times in the last few weeks that you're surprised you haven't automated yet? Let's say client follow-up after calls. Which of the 3 active projects is currently your #1 priority? Let's say the AIOS full course that you're currently watching. So let's see what it comes back with, if it has some good ideas on how to actually start to automate or augment these processes inside my business for my day-to-day workflow. So you can see it came back with some recommendations to build a client follow-up skill, to draft the AIOS course outline, to fill in Claude MD's 3 remaining fill-in fields, and then lastly, fix the YouTube video level data collector. And it also details, what part of the craft framework these are impacting, It's based on sort of this audit trend. I think that's because I included it in the same chat that I actually just ran the audit in that mentions that. But it does sort of look through your entire AIOS and grade it from there. And so now that we have covered and built an entire AIOS, and you have hopefully followed along and have this all built as well, the next section of this course will be on how to sell, pitch, and price selling this AIOS offer to business owners. So now that you have set up an AIOS and you generally know what goes into it, how to use it, and how to potentially set it up for other people, I want to talk more about actually pricing and selling these to clients, to businesses, because I know a lot of you are on here to do that. So if you are a business owner and you just want to set this up personally, you can ignore this section. That's why I put it at the end of the video. So you can just close out now. But if you are interested in pricing and selling an AIOS, here's how I'd actually think about framing it and pricing it. So first, these are just some patterns I've seen work. This isn't some sort of finished playbook that you can go out and replicate and will work like 100%, but these are things I've seen work for people. And I think there's a lot to say there that this is like rooted in reality, even if it's not perfected yet. So again, like I mentioned, this is a work in process, and this is genuinely new territory. So these are just some patterns I've seen work, but there are, as all things, exist on a spectrum, and there's sort of two ends. The first is more consultative and custom. And so this is like you charge a high like base fee, and then maybe you charge per seat, and then it genuinely can sort of implement with any type of business. And so how I would think about structuring this, whoops. And then on the other end, you have productized. And so this would usually be industry specific, sort of a pre-built AIOS where you know what tool stack or systems you're actually going to be integrating into and what sorts of nodes and skills they'd actually want there. And so one to think of is like e-commerce. They have to have a common tool stack. And it's usually a bit lower of a price, but you could do a lot higher volume because you don't have to custom build it or consult with them every single time. And so what this actually looks like is on the left here, we have the consultative, which is a lot more high touch. I would think, or I've seen people price this, and this is how I would price it as well, and I'm going to as I sell this, 5 to 10 grand for like the CEO setup. So that's like the big boy that wants it. And and then after that, you would charge maybe $1,000 to $2,000, maybe a bit more than that, per additional employee they want you to set this up for. So you might be thinking like, why is there such a big like price disparity between these? Because once you set up for the CEO, you generally know like what the business is about, how to connect to their different systems. You might have access to all their API keys already. And the CEO generally does the broadest scope of work within a company. There's a saying, all poop floats to the top in a company. So the CEO generally has to handle a lot more than like each employee. And so once you set up for the CEO, you can probably reuse a lot of those nodes and skills on the different employees. It also is just like good to have like an entry point pricing and then like sort of scale down from there. And have them benefit from adding more and more people to that network of building an AIOS. And the way I would pitch this one, and actually I would pitch both of these this way, is that the AIOS, at least in the way we just built it, with no like custom nodes or skills that you were going to build yourself later, is really the foundation to your company. So really like the core of what we were talking about earlier. Sorry, I'm going back up here. It really sits at the core. And then there's other things you can add on here to add more functionality to your AIOS. And so some of these, and those are all upsells. Blah, blah, blah. And those are all upsells. So some of those would be like maybe a voice agent integration for their company. And all these upsells become way easier once they already have this AI infrastructure built, this AIOS. You could build out a full CRM for them, a chatbot perhaps. You could do outbound sales, custom workflows, additional node installations you could charge for. And now these upsells I really don't have like a great pricing structure for them. They're so variable that you really don't know. It would obviously be nice to get someone on like, it'd be nice to get someone on like a 2K retainer, but then you get into scope creep, and there's just a lot more to think about there. And so we'll sort of see how that ends up. As I do this more, I'll post more videos. I'll let you guys know. And in the community, you guys can let me know sort of what's working, what's not working. And so generally how this consultative offer goes is you first have an audit, which I'll cover in a second, that's charged separately. Then you set up the context and reach for the CEO. The CEO will use it for some set amount of time. He'll get his value out of it. And then he can then, or you will usually then fork the environment for the next hire and help them apply it. If they want to do that themselves, they can. I wouldn't like prevent them from doing that. Most business owners, if they're already paying you this amount of money to set the system up, are not then going to set it up for the rest of their employees for like less money. That's just like the truth. And then you can start adding more layers, more upsells on top of that. So like I was talking about, the AIOS becomes the foundation, and every future agent, automation, etc. is built on top of it. One of the biggest problems I ran into when working with companies building voice agents is like they just had really bad existing technical infrastructure. Their tool stack was really hard to work with, which made building the voice agent a lot more expensive, a lot harder to do. Whereas if they had this AIOS, their tool stack and everything they were using inside of their business was built for this, and it was sort of built from like first AI principles, then it would be so much easier to build anything on top of it. Which is why like where this really compounds and you start to get like 20x returns is when you have this and this AIOS, this infrastructure. And this AIOS infrastructure actually enables you to, not only makes you more productive, but enables you to add things that make you more productive as well that you couldn't if you didn't have it in the first place. Then on the other side, we have more of a productized offer. So one vertical I've always talked about for productization is e-commerce, and that's because most of them are built on top of Shopify, which means they almost always have like a really common tool stack. So like Shopify, a lot of them use like Facebook ads for all of their ads. And so because of that, you can build these productized nodes. For example, in here, like I only have a certain amount of nodes and skills I can give you, because you could be a plumber watching this, or you could be running an e-commerce store and the tools you use are completely different. So like these are the only ones that I feel like are widely applicable to every company. However, if you are able to productize, you can make nodes for like specific, Shopify, cart abandonment flows or whatever that are useful. And then, that's really high value to those people. And so you can actually sell it at a more competitive price point versus a custom. And you can also do it at a higher volume, because you really don't have to custom build a whole lot of nodes or skills into the AIOS when you're selling this. It's also really easy to demo because you know exactly what they're going to get, and you will probably build up case studies in the same industry really, really quick. And there are still probably upsells. It will just depend on the industry, which ones fit. The trade-offs is without customization, it might be a lower perceived value, but that also might be a benefit to a lot of business owners because it's lower lift for them. It's a lot more consistent. You do need to like deeply know the vertical. That's like one of the things that are tough about niches. And that tool stack does need to be consistent across buyers. So you can't think that just because there is a niche like plumbers that they all use the same software. And so just think that like the consultative will teach you like a bunch more because you're working with a bunch of different companies and you're consistently building things. And then productize is what you build once those skills are sharp, you know a vertical really well. And so if you start doing consultative and you see like you worked with 5 different e-com companies of your 7 projects, it might be time to start thinking about a productized offer. So now I want to cover step one, the audit, and from a high level how this works. This is not a course on AI audits or AI consultations, and so it's also not something I've perfected either. So I don't feel super comfortable like going really in depth into it, but I just don't want you to get caught in the trap of sort of selling the AIOS and not doing an audit, because if the audit happens inside of the engagement, which will happen if you don't run an audit, is that you'll have to audit their company anyways, and that time you're just like not getting paid for it, and they're only paying for an AIOS, not an audit, and they end up getting both. Because to build an AIOS, you're basically going to end up mapping their entire business for free, and it becomes unpaid consulting, sort of baked into this fixed price project. And the problem with that too is that after you do an audit, the build of the AIOS will go so much smoother. Like, it's really hard to like communicate this. Because you just know everything about their business up front, so you know the direction you want to take it, you know, sort of, you know, where to get the context, what platforms you actually need to integrate into, etc. And you build up rapport with them and their employees. And so when you run an audit, just make sure you cover the current tools that they're using or paying for, where all their data is. And so this is, big one is like AI chats for this. So if you can export their Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT history, that's awesome. Their Google Drive will also be a great source for that. Their team time, like how are they actually spending their time? Where can like you actually move the needle in terms of starting to automate things? Workflow, so like how they actually work. What is the actual automation opportunity for each of these tasks? Then build sort of like a recommended roadmap and be like, I'll take you so maybe you build out a roadmap that's like this far and be like, okay, like what I'm charging will take you here. Then we have a monthly plan so that, you know, we can keep making these advancements every month. And then give a proposed pricing for the full engagement. And so why this actually works is it's a lower risk entry point. It's generally cheaper than the AIOS for the client. Again, I've heard of people paying like per employee for these audits. So, you know, maybe you have to interview like the CEO and then maybe they have like 5 employees and you interview someone over here as well as someone over here and you charge like $500, $1,000 each. It's $1,500 to $3,000. So cheaper than AIOS. And so it's a lower risk entry point for the client. It's good for you because you get paid to actually learn their business instead of doing it for free if you just did the AIOS and then ended up having to gather all this information anyways. It also means the client's already invested. So like the conversion down here when you're proposing the pricing is really high. And the audit output is basically the proposal for the AIOS. So, you know, you're getting paid to do work you would have done anyways, and it frames the project really well. It makes it go a lot smoother. It also sets the scope so the AIOS has clear edges, which again, just makes it go so much smoother. And it positions you as the expert before the build. So generally the flow of this is you have whatever your sales process is generally a series of calls. You can then pitch them and sell them on the audit. You run the audit. It's generally like a week or two, depending on how many people you're interviewing. You give them the roadmap, which is really the output from the audit. What they get and what they're paying for is this roadmap. And at the end of it, basically be like, we recommend this AIOS. Here's, you know, everything we would plan on building in it, which would be like, you know, this timeline here. You then sell that, and then you start building the AIOS. You can see, if you think back to when you were just building your own AIOS, like how much you had to think and audit your own company. And so you basically have to help someone else go through that exact process you just went through. And so now let's talk about who I think these are actually a really good fit for in terms of, you know, selling these as an agency. I want to be clear, when I talk about like tough sell to high value, this doesn't mean that an AIOS doesn't work for these people and works better for these people. It's just in terms of like selling a high ticket AI offer, these people are a much tougher sell than these people over here. And so, or in terms of like the sweet spot, because these are still a tough sell. It's just you get more money. But a lot of solopreneurs and micro companies just won't pay that much money for a system. If they're a solopreneur, they probably like setting up stuff by themselves, especially if they're in the online space. That might just be you watching this tutorial and setting it up right now as a solopreneur instead of going out and hiring someone to do it for you. So they can use the AIOS, but they'll probably just set it up themselves. It's hard for them to justify the price, and they're better served by a course like this or a community. And then what I'd say is the sweet spot are these small to medium-sized businesses, especially for you guys out there. Again, it's tough to target businesses bigger than this size unless you just really have a great catalog or your previous career, you have connections there. And so when getting started selling these systems, I think these are the easiest businesses both to contact as well as you can make just a huge change for the business when they're at this size. It's hard to reach enterprise deals. Like, people will talk about it and you think there's just so much money in it, but honestly, it's really hard to close those deals. They often start out a lot smaller. And so when you get these 10 to 50 person businesses, whether they're local or regional, obviously also helps. It's really just the easiest starting client because they're big enough to have real workflows and real revenue to automate. I mean, businesses at this size are easily doing at least 5 million a year in revenue to 10, 15, 20. It really depends what industry they're in. But they're doing real revenue, and I mean, all those people are doing things every day. And so the other benefit is that it is small enough that the CEO is still in the weeds and will feel the value immediately, and they're usually looking to scale beyond this. I will say, when selling the AIOS, you do want to target companies that are looking to scale their operations, actually looking to invest to hit that next level in their business, and really take that step. The fact that they're local in this size also means they're usually motivated, so looking to scale, and they usually see other businesses adopting AI and they don't want to be left behind. Local businesses are also often like the founder, the CEO, usually won't be as tech savvy and will have to lean on someone to help them implement AI, because usually it won't be themselves, whether that's an employee or you, who is usually a lot more qualified than one of their own employees, who then has to, instead of spending time doing their job, go out, research, and learn all this stuff. And so the easiest pitch is that you find out how much they're working in admin, and you just say, we can get that down, we can help you save, and really frame you, give you this foundation like we were talking about, to have an AI first company and build for a future in AI. Then third, really high value in terms of where the AIOS has the most value is any online native business, just because they have so much data. So there's higher value per engagement, and this is because they just have more what I like to call data artifacts. Because if you think about a plumbing company that's all in person, all those conversations you can't throw into the AIOS and add as context. But if a company, let's say, is purely remote, sort of we're looking at complete opposite ends, where this is maybe local and this is remote, this company over here is going to have all these, let's say, Slack chats, emails. They're going to have a CRM to manage everything. They're going to have analytics, perhaps ad accounts, transcripts from calls, because they're having them, again, online and not in person, which just makes the AIOS work a lot better because there's a lot more context and data to work with. So these companies are just a lot more data rich when they're online native. Now, this doesn't mean that they have to be an online company like e-commerce where everybody's remote, although that company will be pretty much all the way over here on the spectrum. But a tech forward company, even if their services are in person, would also qualify here. So the bottom line is just the more the AI can see, the more it can do for them. And some good examples of these online native companies are e-commerce, SaaS, agencies, any content business, and then coaches or any sort of info product. And so the upsells will land easier, and there's just sort of more to connect. But usually these companies tend to be a bit smaller than companies with a big in-person presence and a big office. So I would still say the sweet spot, you want to target local, small to medium-sized businesses. That'll be the easiest for you to pitch and land your first clients and first projects here. But do know the core of what I'm trying to get across over here is that the more data and artifacts you have access to, the better. And that's sort of just like the bottom line there. And so now I want to talk more about how to actually position the AIOS offer. Because it's not adding AI to the business, it's again building this foundation of an AI forward company. And so I don't want you to say like, we'll add AI to your business, or like, here's a chatbot or an AI automation or bolt ChatGPT onto what you do. That's not how I pitch it. I'd instead pitch it as the foundation of how you run the company, that everything you build with AI will sit on top of this, that your business is that it's your business understood and acted on by AI, and it's becoming an AI forward company from the CEO down. Because that truly is how transformational this is. I mean, you see, I know I keep coming back to this, but these are major companies making major decisions to lay off a ton of their workforce because they do believe this technology and this way of working with AI is going to be at the center of everything they do going forward. And if you read, Block has a great, Jack Dorsey wrote a great blog post on why he did it, and then Brian Armstrong made a tweet explaining his exact decision, and he uses a lot more technical terms, but essentially what he's saying is that instead of a traditional org structure where you have a CEO at the top, and then it sort of just looks like a tree, so maybe you have like the chief marketing officer, the chief like revenue officer, whatever C-suite, and from here they talk to these people, and depending on how big your business is, this might go multiple rows down. And all of a sudden, these people, employee number 25 is like 3 levels away from the CEO. And so information just really doesn't transfer that well there. And the organization's structured like a wedding cake. It's layered. Whereas in the future, they're saying that you'll have AI at the center, which will be this AIOS, and instead the org structure will be flattened. So here's like a flat org structure, and basically what they're saying is it will be circular, which is the same as a line. It's just wrapped around the AI. And so this way, you have people here, 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 and all the way around. And let's say this person over here on the marketing team wants to talk to a software engineer. Previously, what they would have to do is go all the way over here. Say this is the marketing person. This is the software engineer. It would have to go up through this chain, up to the CEO, and somehow down to there. Is the only way they really connect, because you can only bring issues up through. And so essentially, this information never gets over there. However, with this more circular structure, let me use a different color here. This person is directly interacting with the AIOS, and it's coming back to them, and all these people are feeding into it. And so whatever data this person has, the AI can communicate that to the software engineer. And so this is the real power behind it. I know this feels a bit abstract right now. Again, especially if you're a solopreneur and like the org structures and everything isn't something you've interacted with. But the more I've worked with companies, the more I've seen these sorts of issues be so prevalent. And so I'm really excited about this technology, really bullish on it, because I just know how much better this way of working is than this way of working. And so the key message you want it to be is that most businesses that try to bolt AI onto how they already work fail, or they at least, if they are successful, don't see the type of success that they could see at a greater scale. And the ones that really win use AI as the excuse to rebuild from first principles. And so this is how you do that. Again, this doesn't mean you have to go into a business and tell them to stop doing everything the way they are. They don't have to fire half their staff. If they are in this 10 to 50 person range, they're small enough to still steer the ship. If you think of companies as ships, it takes a while to steer like the Titanic, which is, I guess, is why it ran into an iceberg. But if you have, a smaller boat with a lot less people on it, you might not be able to react like you're on a jet ski with one person, but you can still steer it a lot quicker. And so the same thing goes for businesses in terms of changing direction, changing priorities. And so that is it for this tutorial.